How you doing? Who I am is not important, but what I have to say is important. Now today we're going to be discussing spiritual health. And unlike physical health, where physical health is something objectively identifiable, spiritual health is something subjectively identifiable. Now it's important to know this throughout today's discussion because spiritual health revolves entirely around subjective opinions, moral codes, and religious or various other beliefs. In fact, spiritual health is the embodiment to believe. It is the aura, the essence of somebody's belief system. Now, there's a variety of belief systems out there, whether they be pre-established or ones that you create on your own, whether they be beneficial or detrimental to your health, or whether it be something for you to keep occupied throughout your life, or to look forward to, feel a need, or feel like there is a purpose of existing. As spiritual health is the construction created to give you a purpose, or make you create your own purpose, or follow a pre-established purpose that's already set out for you. These belief systems range from concepts to religions to identities and various other forms. Now, something major to note about spiritual health, however, is that spiritual health is not necessarily necessary, especially if it's a detriment to your health more than it is a benefit. Prime examples of detrimental belief systems would include concepts such as racism, sexism, or fear in it of itself. Now, these concepts are very detrimental due to the fact that it makes the individual who believes in these concepts search out or look out for these things almost on a daily basis because it brings them paranoia, it brings them angst, or it brings them anger. It brings them a unhealthy emotional feeling, which will contribute to the discussion in next week's video, where I will discuss more in detail with emotional health. For example, in the form of racism, someone who would believe in racism would be searching out and looking for racism, not necessarily intentionally, but would always keep an eye out for it, and could possibly interpret something to be racist, when in actuality, to the other individuals involved, it may not be, because of perspective, and because in their perspective it's not racist, whereas this individual who believes in racism, it is racist because they believe in the concept. In fact, the saying usually tends to go, if you believe in something like this, if you believe in racism, most of the time you are the one who turned out to be racist. Now, this is just a saying, but oftentimes the reason why this would turn out to be the case is due to the fact that since the individual is searching for a deeper meaning to a belief system such as racism, they themselves may become racist through looking at the other races differently because they are searching for something that may not even exist. In fact, we as human beings give deeper meaning to things that are straightforward or very simplistic, to create complexity for ourselves to feel that we have a need to belong. In fact, the world is actually extremely simplistic in how it is presented, like I mentioned in the physical health video, such as there's a wall here, this is a painting, this is a curtain, and in our human eyes, we identified the color here to be gray and orangish, but by looking at the painting, one with a deeper complex meaning that is given to this painting would say that this painting is a work of art. They could see that the trombone there on top of the chair may describe a deeper symbolic meaning to it all. However, to another person who will look at it more simplistically and not so complex and not give it a deeper meaning would probably say that this is just a painting, because at face value, it is just a painting. But we as human beings, we give things deeper meanings as a form of beliefs, or possibly as a form of communication, as mentioned in the previous video. But why exactly do we human beings do that? Why exactly do we give deeper meanings to things that are more simplistic at face value, to things that are objective and factual and are just existing? Well, the reason we do so mainly has to do with our emotional responses to things. Because like most living organisms, on an emotional response level, we desire more affection and pleasure in order to keep us happy, to keep our energy levels high, to keep our optimism high, in order to keep going and to find or create a purpose, like I mentioned, in a world that really doesn't present a reason to exist. In a world on a simplistic level that doesn't really present a reason to exist at all. The world, like various other things that I mentioned, just exists and we live in it. And to live in it with no greater motive or with no grander scale makes us desire a want for a purpose, a want for a grander scale, a want for a reason as to why we are here, a reason as to why you want to stay here, a reason as to why you want to keep going until death inevitably comes. And there is no belief system that we as humans have adopted that is grander than a religion such as Christianity. As I mentioned before in the social health video, Christianity is a social construct that is a form of good and evil, a concept as basic, as simple, and set in stone to keep us in check, to not harm each other, and to not deviate from one another or from continuing the life cycle of reproducing. It's essentially a religious belief system that was purposefully crafted for society as a need, as a reason to exist, to have a purpose, to stay alive and keep going, to be humble, to be kind to other people, to be nice, and to be appreciative of the things around you. However, like all belief systems and subjective opinions, not everyone is going to agree or see the same perspective as most people. Others would prefer to branch out and have their own perspectives, their own belief systems, and their own purposes, or perhaps even create their own personal identities as a reason to exist. Now, while perspective can differ between individuals, what is undeniable is objective factual information, and especially when spiritual health or anything subjective regarding spiritual health goes up against something objective. Because regardless of the belief, regardless of the moral code, or regardless of the opinion, when it comes to something that is factual, that is real, that is objectively there, anything that is subjective is automatically negated. Anything that is subjective is automatically negated because we already have the real answer. We already have the real thing, or we already have whatever it is that is objective. I'll give you two prime examples. First example is if you were to believe in a religion, which you absolutely could, but there was scientific evidence and factual information that disproved a portion of that religion in regards to a situation that requires an answer, well, then the objective factual information is the thing that's going to be taken into account, and not the religion. And in that situation, the religion will be negated. Same goes for if somebody identified themselves as something or someone, but in a situation, the scientifically accurate, objective, factual information that is true and real goes against what is being identified of that individual, then the objective factual information is what's going to be taken into account because that is real. That is factual, and the subjective manner of the identification will be negated as well. Now, it is extremely important to know these things in regards to discussion, because whilst you absolutely could believe in whatever you want to believe, because you can, it's your mind after all, when a situation requires you to look at factual information and take into account what is true and what is real, you need to take into account what is real versus your own personal beliefs. You need to put your personal beliefs aside for the truth. Now, sometimes belief systems, subjective opinions, and moral codes are forced upon you where you are not capable or allowed to make a decision that goes against something subjective. In cases like these, it becomes very challenging and very difficult because when you try to tell the objective, real information that is actually real, but you get punished for telling something that is true, that is real, then that would make a person potentially want to break or potentially want to do everything in their ability to destroy the subjective opinions or beliefs of someone else. Like I mentioned in the communication video, it is important to note that if you have a belief system or subjective opinions, that not everyone is going to 100% be guaranteed to agree with you or listen to you. It is all on perspective, and that perspective can't be forced. It needs to be authentic. If the individual authentically believes in what you believe in, then there's no need to force any kind of value. But if the individual doesn't believe in what you believe in, then you can't force the individual to do so. Otherwise, there's going to be conflict in regards to those perspectives and in regards to how the situation can be handled. It is important to be able to handle a situation at all times with both individuals being able to utilize their perspectives in agreement. However, this requires both individuals, if necessary, to have to put their subjective opinions aside, put their beliefs aside, in order to do what is real, what is factual, what is objective, whatever task they need to do. This is why oftentimes in workplaces or in businesses, you'll have people with various different personalities or various different beliefs working together, but not having major conflict, because whatever the personal belief of the individuals are, they need to put aside for the business and to be able to do work. Now, a quick little example of a belief system being instilled onto somebody who doesn't really have a choice in regards to agreeing or disagreeing with that belief would be parents and their children. Albeit, while a parent can teach their child whatever they want because it is their child, eventually the child is going to be able to make their own decisions, and if they find that the beliefs that their parents have or the choices that their parents made for them has not really helped them or benefited them in being better or feeling like they're better overall, then there may be some conflict in regards to the parent and the child in regards to those belief systems. So the question is, if we have to always follow what is real versus what is not, why do we still believe in things that are not real and that are simply just concepts or created ideas in our mind and make them have complexity? Well, let's quickly review. As I mentioned earlier, the reason why people make these complex meanings to things that are simplistic is for an emotional response, is to have an emotional response to things, to be able to relate and feel like there is something grander at stake, that there is a purpose, that there is a reason. So to answer the best I can for the question, it has to do with both emotional and mental health of the individual. And both of those lessons will be discussed over the next 2 weeks. So if you are willing to hear how those discussions go and to learn more about emotional health and mental health, then I suggest tuning in to next week and the week after that. It's your call. But that will conclude today's lesson, and I'll see some of you next week in class.